Welcome to the Chapter 15 lecture video on organizational structure. In this video, we will discuss the 7 primary elements of organizational structure as well as common types of structure. Organizational structure reflects the way to which job tasks are formally divided, grouped, and coordinated. When designing an organization structure, managers should address 7 key elements, including work specialization or division of labor, departmentalization, chain of command, span of control, centralization, formalization, and boundary spanning. The first element of organizational structure is work specialization, also known as division of labor. Work specialization is the degree to which jobs are subdivided into separate jobs and tasks. With work specialization, managers would divide complex tasks into several smaller steps, each completed by a different individual. And each individual would specialize in completing just part of the larger task. So let's say we're dealing with a car manufacturing company. With work specialization, the task of making a car could be broken down into multiple smaller tasks. Following the image on the bottom of the screen, the first task of making the car's frame goes to the person in green. The next task of making the car's tires goes to the gentleman with glasses. The third task of safety and inspection goes to the lady in white, and so on. Each specialized individual would repeat the same task to create a larger product, thereby increasing efficiency and task mastery. Now, some problems with task specialization is that every single person would need to be available in order to complete the final product. For example, you can't have a completed car without the tires or without the frame, and you couldn't have a safe car without the safety specialist. Since each individual is specialized in only their one area, if someone is absent, the task cannot be completed in its entirety, which is problematic. Furthermore, high work specialization can also lead to a loss of autonomy and lower job satisfaction since the same tasks are repeated day in and day out without much variability or change. The second element of organizational structure is departmentalization. Departmentalization defines how jobs are grouped together. So, jobs are often departmentalized or grouped together based on some common tasks in order to be coordinated efficiently. Tasks are most often grouped by function. For example, customer related tasks are grouped as customer services, or administrative tasks are grouped as administration. Besides functional grouping, tasks can also be grouped by the product or service sold, the geography or the territory of the product, or by the type of customer, among many other groupings. And departmentalization groupings can and do change over time. For example, Microsoft shifted from a customer based to a function based departmentalization in response to internal and external market pressures. The third element of organizational structure is the chain of command or the line of authority that extends from the top of the organization to the lowest echelons and clarifies whom reports to who. And chain of command was once a basic cornerstone of almost all organizational designs. However, it is less relevant today because of the increased popularity of self managed groups, cross functional groups, and horizontal leadership schemas. The fourth element of organizational structure is span of control. Span of control reflects the number of subordinates each manager can efficiently and effectively oversee. As portrayed in the image, with a narrow span of control, managers can only effectively oversee a few subordinates at a time, versus with a wider span of control, the number of subordinates effectively and efficiently overseen increases. Span of control has huge implications for not only the structure of the organization, but also its overall efficiency. If you look at the figure a little closer, a wider span of control that is more subordinates effectively overseen means less hierarchical levels are needed to hit the same target number of operatives. So let's walk through this in a little more detail. So, with a span of control of 4, it takes 7 hierarchical levels and just over 1,300 managers to oversee over 4,000 subordinates. However, with a span of control of 8, it only takes 5 levels and 585 managers to oversee the same number of subordinates. So, all things being equal, the wider or larger the span of control, the fewer the levels in the hierarchy, and the more employees at each level, the more efficient the organization is. This is important for you to understand for your quiz, so I want to say it again. A wider or larger span of control makes an organization, on average, more efficient. The fifth element of organizational structure is centralization, which reflects the degree to which decision making is concentrated at a single point in the organization. In a centralized organization, decision making occurs at the very top of a hierarchy with the CEO or the top management team, and lower level managers merely carry out those decisions. So, what are the advantages of centralization? For starters, centralized organizations are better at avoiding commission errors or bad choices. Because power is aggregated at the top and those individuals at the top tend to be specialized and skilled, they on average make reasonably good decisions. And centralization also provides total and complete control of decision making, which can be very beneficial. So remember, with centralization, you're avoiding commission errors and you also have total and complete control of decision making. In a decentralized organization, on the other hand, decision making is pushed down to multiple frontline managers who are closer to employees. So, what are the advantages of a decentralized organization? Where centralized organizations avoid commission errors, decentralized organizations are better at avoiding omission errors or opportunity losses. Because they have a larger body of people providing input and decision making, they are more likely to generate unique and novel ideas and take advantage of unique opportunities. Furthermore, decentralization provides adaptability and flexibility as managers making decisions have hands-on familiarity with working conditions, the products and services, etc. And they can act more quickly and effectively without having to reach out to others who have the appropriate knowledge. Decentralization also provides greater communication and more effective communication channels and provides employees with opportunities to provide input. So remember, with decentralization, you're avoiding omission errors. You've got a lot of adaptability and flexibility as those managers are more experienced with the day-to-day lives of their employees and the products and the working conditions. And you've got more effective communication in general. The sixth element of organizational structure is formalization, which is the degree to which jobs within an organization are standardized. And what we mean by standardization is that a specific job would be completed the same way by everyone in the organization. For example, if all secretaries complete their jobs in the same manner with the same expectations and the same standards, that would reflect high formalization as there is minimal work discretion and low job autonomy. Now, if each secretary could complete their job when they wanted, how they wanted, then the job would consist of low formalization, as the job behaviors are relatively non-programmed and employees have a great deal of autonomy and discretion in how their job is performed. And the level of formalization can vary both between and within organizations, such that not only do jobs in different organizations provide different amounts of formalization or the between organizational differences, but jobs in the same organization can show different levels of formalization as well. For example, maybe the secretary job has low formalization, but the lawyer job in the same organization has high formalization. This would reflect differences within an organization. The last element of organizational structure is boundary spanning, which reflects the degree to which employees form relationships with people outside their formally assigned group or groups. So, if an employee in the marketing department forms connections with an employee from the finance department, they would be engaging in boundary spanning behavior within the organization. And boundary spanning can be very beneficial as employees share valuable pieces of information with one another, they develop new skill sets, and they acquire new knowledge while hopefully bringing that information back to their own assigned group. And boundary spanning can also happen outside the organization where employees form connections with employees in competing or affiliated organizations and then take meaningful information back to the home base. And external boundary spanning is most effective when it's followed up with internal boundary spanning in the form of extensive internal communication. Like formalization, boundary spanning can vary between and within organizations, with some companies engaging in more or less boundary spanning than others, as well as some departments or groups within a company engaging in more boundary spanning than others. Now, the two most common types of organizational structure include the simple structure and the bureaucratic structure. With a simple structure, there is little departmentalization of jobs, so jobs aren't really grouped together. There is a wide span of control, with supervisors being able to efficiently and effectively oversee a larger number of subordinates. There is high centralization, with decision making being pushed to the very top of the organizational hierarchy, and there is little formalization such that employees can perform their jobs with lots of discretion and autonomy. And some strengths of a simple structure is that it is simple, fast, and flexible. It is also inexpensive to maintain, and accountability is very, very clear. That being said, a simple structure only really works in smaller organizations. It is also very risky as all decision making and power depends on one person. And as we know, even the most knowledgeable and experienced people are imperfect and biased. With a bureaucracy or a bureaucratic structure, on the other hand, there is high specialization such that jobs are subdivided into smaller tasks. There is also high departmentalization, such that those subdivided jobs are then grouped together. There is high chain of command, where it is very clear who reports to whom. However, there is a narrow span of control, such that each supervisor can only efficiently and effectively oversee a limited number of subordinates. And like the simple structure, there is high centralization in a bureaucratic structure, such that the decision making is concentrated at the top of the hierarchy. And there is high formalization, such that jobs are very standardized, having little room for autonomy or discretion. One strength of a bureaucracy is the ability to perform standardized activities in a highly efficient manner. So, bureaucratic organizations are quite efficient. However, bureaucracy often leads to high subunit conflict within departments and groups. It also leads to overall weak management, since there are so many managers managing so many people across so many specialized groups and tasks. So, although it is efficient, management overall tends to be a pretty weak. That is it for this lecture video. As always, email me if you have any questions or concerns at samantha.jordan@unt.edu.